Welcome to TSR tonight. This is your host, Brian Moss. We're going to talk about the game that Memphis won over Bethune Cookman in a few minutes. But first up, we're going to look ahead and we're going to talk to Luke Matheson. Luke is with the Arkansas State rival site. Luke, how you doing tonight?
Good, man. How are you?
Not too bad. I know it was a tough loss against Oklahoma.
Yeah.
As I told you off air, I mean, I don't put too much stock into that game because again, it's Oklahoma. I mean, how many Group of Five teams would do well against Oklahoma? So, just if you could, is there anything you could take out of that game?
I will tell you this. One of the big things that I took away is it's easy to jump on the negatives, and there were plenty of negatives in that game. I tried to
Hmm.
look at some of the positives. Uh, I will tell you this, and think back to the Memphis game last year and even the year before that between Memphis and Arkansas State. The last 2 years, Arkansas State has not had a very good offensive line. They did not protect the quarterbacks very well. 2 years ago, Arkansas State used two quarterbacks against Memphis. They used Lane Hatcher and James Blackman. Of course, that starts a big debate in Jonesboro. Who's the guy? Who's the guy? And I'm sitting here like, guys, it don't matter which one it is unless that line can protect them. So fast forward to this year, Bush Jones goes out, and him and his staff they recruit a brand new offensive line. Several transfers from the SEC. Got a center from graduate transfer center from Lamar. They did not give up a single tackle for loss or a single sack against Oklahoma on Saturday. So that's the big positive. They protected the quarterback. They protected the running game. That was a big positive. Tackling. This is going to sound funny when you look at a team that hung 73 points. Tackling was better when they did tackle. There were definitely some positives. New quarterback JT Shroud, another graduate transfer guy, got 1 year to play at Arkansas State. He's got a big arm. He read defenses well. He's able to get through his reads really well. And I felt bad for JT because his quarterback rating was not very good, but I think there were 8 drop passes, and every one of those passes, guys were wide open.
Wow. Yeah, I know. When you talk about the offensive line and drop passes, that you you could easily talk about Memphis last year. But the record wise, Butch Jones hasn't had a great record at
No.
Arkansas State. So it begs the question: is his seat warm, or is it hot, or is it? Do Arkansas State fans kind of like realize that this is a rebuilding effort? It's going to take some time.
Yeah, it depends on who you talk to. There are fans that I see that absolutely want him gone yesterday. There are fans that I know that realize what is going on with this rebuild and that it's going to take time. I will tell you this: when he was hired, now granted, he was hired by a different athletic director than what is at Arkansas State now. But when Butch Jones was hired, he was told this is a 5 year rebuild. You're in year three. Game one of year three is against a top 20 team that's going to compete well this year.
Hmm.
Um, so I know here's what Arkansas State is up against. And before I say what I want to be perfectly clear that I respect Blake Anderson. And I love Blake Anderson. Blake Anderson was awesome to me when he was at Arkansas State. Everybody in the country knows the story to Blake Anderson and Wendy Anderson's story where his wife ultimately came down with breast cancer and it took her life. When Miss Wendy got sick, Blake did the right thing. He went and became a husband first. But the football program suffered because of that. Recruiting suffered because of it, things like that. And so to put it in perspective, the first year that Butch Jones was here, there were, I believe it was 68 players he put into the transfer portal. Out of those 68, less than 20 ended up with a new home from Division One, Division Two, Division Three, or even a JUCO.
Wow.
There were guys, and I started noticing it. So now let me back a little bit. When Miss Wendy got sick, Blake also lost his 3 best recruiting assistants. Lost Brian Early and Joe Coffin, his defensive line coach and his defensive coordinator. They went to Houston. Then Trooper Taylor. Everybody knows Trooper Taylor, super recruiter for every team he's ever been on. He's at Duke now. You see what Duke's doing right now.
Hmm.
Uh, so your 3 best recruiters are gone. You're away because you're dealing with family issues. And the guys that he brought in just were not at that level. And so what I was seeing in recruiting, of course, we work for Rivals, we follow recruiting. What I
Yep.
was seeing was So I got another program I cover for a local news outlet that I work at. I cover a SWAC program, UAPB, University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. I was seeing Arkansas State recruit against UAPB for recruits. That's never going to work in the group of five. And that's exactly what Butch Jones was facing when he first got here, even a little bit last year. Then you have a situation where Blake Anderson was more of a happy-go-lucky, get up, let's have fun. Hey, guys, let's have fun, go have a great time. Butch Jones, he's like Nick Saban. He's down to business. You can have fun after business is finished type attitude. And this is what we're going to do. This is how it's going to be done. I don't care what you think. This is, so you went from one mindset to another, and there were some really good players that could have helped Arkansas State that just never bought in. I'm not saying that they're wrong for that, because everybody's got their own beliefs and opinions, and not everybody's going to be able to fit in for a certain coach. But the guys that are here now, I definitely believe just what I've seen. This group that's here now that he's recruited, they're bought in. They responded differently after Saturday's loss to Oklahoma, knowing they just got absolutely destroyed, and they responded better to that loss than anybody else. These guys came in off the plane, went to Jonesboro, went straight into the meeting room and started having meetings and watching film and figuring out what they did wrong. And that hasn't happened in the first 2 years that Butch Jones has been here. Now, I'm not a fortune teller. I can't sit here and say that Butch Jones is going to fix everything. I like his plan. I've had detailed conversations with Butch Jones. I love his plan. I think it can work. But there was a lot of turnover. You'll hear Butch Jones talk about, this is really year one. This is not year three. That's going back to a lot of that stuff I was just talking about. All the kids they put in the portal that just were not capable of playing football at this level. And then guys that just refused to buy in that he had. And it wasn't just football players. There were some coaches assistant coaches he had to get rid of that were not buying in also. And so get all that kind of going to where it is today. I saw on your website, you shared the article I did last night. Is Memphis a must win for Butch Jones? Personally, I don't think that it is, but there are people that think that. And it's more along the lines, maybe not necessarily a must win, but a must compete. It's one of those deals. If Memphis, look, let's be honest, last two games, it's been a one possession game.
Yeah.
So because of that, there's fans that want to see Arkansas State get over that hump. Hey, if it's close in the fourth quarter, you got to figure it out this year, Butch. You got, and last year we thought, and same with me, I thought last year was the year because, Arkansas State's got the ball with less than 2 minutes. They're moving straight down the field on Memphis. They're burning clock. And then you get an offensive lineman that jumps off sides 4 times in a row. And then you fumble. And Memphis ends up with it and puts it in, scores. And Arkansas State still almost threw a game-winning touchdown pass. So there are fans that are looking at that as like, all right, you got to get over that hump. They got to figure out the fourth quarter. They've hung with Memphis for 3.5. They got to figure out that other half and get it done. And it's one of those deals like you're playing Memphis at home. This is a known rivalry game between the two programs. You at least have to show up. And if you don't show up if Memphis does to Arkansas State what Oklahoma did to Arkansas State, you're not going to have a crowd this year. So that's kind of the mindset and the mentality that fans have right now. And there are some, yes, that want Butch Jones gone.
Yeah. Now you touched on it a little bit. I know the transfer portal has affected Memphis, both in a good way and a bad way. We have some kids that Memphis really wanted to keep that go on to Florida or some other places. But has the transfer portal been a positive or a negative, do you think, for Arkansas State?
Yeah, both. So if you remember last year, one of the big plays in the Arkansas State-Memphis game was an unknown tight end that, third, fourth play of the game, he goes, 70-something yards and looked like a freaking gazelle running down. He's gone. He had a good season for Arkansas State, and the portal got him. They came after him, and he left. So the bad side of that is him and a couple of other guys that could have legitimately helped this team this year are gone because of the portal. Now, on the flip side, you've got a good offensive line that I've already mentioned that came in because of the portal. You got a couple of guys that started at or played into 2 deep with Ole Miss last year. You got a guy that started at Lamar, and you got a starter that returned from Arkansas State, and they held off Oklahoma. and they're not going to see another defense like that this year. Not that
Yeah.
speed, not that size, and all that. Nothing against Memphis or any other upcoming opponents, but that's just top 20 teams are just a whole nother beast.
Yeah.
So you've got that. There's a couple of defensive pieces that they got. Obviously, they got a quarterback. Got a really good running back that is into 3 deep. And I'll tell you right now, the running back position is very interesting to me because normally you hear of a 2 or 3 deep. They got 5 guys. You can see either one of those 5 at any time in a game, and they're rolling 5 deep at running back right now. And that's something that I think that can help them through the year because obviously running backs are guys that they're some of the first to be injured sometimes, things like that. I think Arkansas State's biggest issue that they need to address right now, though, is still that defensive secondary. Everything else, I'll say this, they have got the skill players to have a winning season this year. I think they got to overcome that mindset because that winning mindset has not been in Jonesboro in a few years. They've got to figure out, you hear Butch Jones say, in order not to lose, you got to learn how to win. People talk about him, but he's absolutely right. This program, this team has got to learn how to win again.
And you talked a little bit earlier about JT Shroud. I mean, he has, the Power 5 experience, from Tennessee to Colorado. What have you seen him bring to that, quarterback room and to this team?
Instant leadership. He's been there. He's done that. Any kind of defense that has been, he's seen them all. The first day that I physically stood next to him, I was laughing because I was like, they got him listed as 6'4". Well, I'm a veteran. I go to the VA about once every 6 months, and my height's taken. I'm 6'4.5", and I'm looking up at the dude. I'm like, yeah, 6'4". He's probably a 6'5.5", 6'6" guy in realistic talking. He reads the field well. He reads defenses well. Like I said, he was even able to do his checkoffs and go through his progressions against Oklahoma. One part of that was the line providing him protection, but also part of it just that experience being, all right, well, he's not open. Let me go to him. Well, he's not open. He's not, and dump it off, whatever he needs to do. And I feel like I said, I felt bad for him because there were 8 drop passes that I know of, and 2 to 3 of those that they were caught, they'd have scored. So you're talking about a 73-0 game, and at least 3 passes where the receivers were behind the defense.
When you look at this Memphis and Arkansas State game, what's one matchup that you're going to be looking for?
It's definitely going to be that offensive line, defensive line matchup because Memphis has always had solid line play in the trenches. And if Arkansas and if that offensive line can protect JT Shroud in open running lanes, I think that brings a new element to the game that Arkansas State didn't have last year. I'm also going to be looking at wide receivers and defensive backs. Arkansas State obviously returns back an all-conference player in Jeff Foreman. Well, you also get Corey Rucker back. Corey Rucker was a freshman All-American. Made the play when Arkansas State beat Kansas State. He was on the field then. He left, went to South Carolina because he didn't like Bush, went out to South Carolina, figured out what he wanted it to be. And so here's a cool story for you. Butch Jones went back to Alabama on a break and actually went to a concert. And Corey Rucker found out about it, drove from South Carolina to Alabama and met Butch Jones at that concert to ask if he could come back. Well,
nice.
He ends up talking to Butch. Butch says, yeah, you can come back. He ends up getting injured at South Carolina, gets the medical red shirt, which makes him immediately eligible this year. and so, you got those 2 guys that are great wide receivers. There's a couple other guys in there. Butch Jones' son, Adam Jones, is a fantastic wide receiver, interior wide receiver. Made a lot of plays for the Red Wolves last year. So I'm going to be looking at that, and I'm going to be looking at Arkansas State's secondary. Sammy Johnson got hurt against Oklahoma. We still have not gotten any information on whether or not Sammy's going to be available for the game. It might be one of those game time decisions. They're not talking about it. I don't know. Justin Parks did not play. Justin Parks was the one that was consoling Butch Jones on the sidelines. And so Justin Parks is actually the starting safety and a very good one at that. Did not play against Oklahoma. Will he play Saturday night? We don't know. So that's two guys, particularly on defense, that I'm looking to see if they're going to show up on the field Saturday night.
All right, last thing I got for you is, Memphis leads the series, 32-24, 5 ties. But in Jonesboro, Arkansas State leads the series 13-8. I'm not asking you to predict the winner, but what type of game are you expecting? Because the last 3 games, it's been fun, back and forth games. Is that something that you expect to see Saturday?
I think so, and it's for one reason and one reason alone. The players that I've talked to this week, I think they realize that Butch Jones is against the wall right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're going to respond for him. Just the way they're talking, the way they're carrying themselves, I think they realize what is on the line this week. And if there is one game this year I think these guys will absolutely show up for, it's this one.
Good deal, Luke. I appreciate your time. Tell the folks where they can find you on your social media.
Oh, absolutely. So just at Luke Matheson on Twitter or at Red Wolf Report on Twitter. Either one, you're going to get the same thing on both of them. Got an Instagram at Red Wolf Report also, and then Red Wolf Report on Facebook as well.
Good deal, Luke. We appreciate your time and look forward to the game.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
All right, you have a good one. All right, and we'll be right.
Looking to get away from it all? Hey, it's John here with Tropical Getaways Travel. And when I'm not following the Tigers, I help families and groups have their next amazing vacation. Maybe you're looking for a cruise, or maybe it's an all-inclusive resort that you've been dreaming of. Either way, I can help you plan a vacation that fits your budget and your lifestyle. When you're ready to start planning that vacation, give me a call at 901-667-8747. That's 901-667-8747. Or you can visit my website at tropicalgetaways.net. Let's start planning your next amazing vacation.
Welcome back to TSR tonight. Let's appreciate Luke stopping by, talking about Arkansas State. All right, let's go back and reminisce about the Tigers' first game against Bethune-Cookman. Overall, I think you have to give it, if I'm going to have to give a grade, I'd say like a B-. I mean, it's 56-14. If it wasn't for those, 2 mistakes, it would be, obviously even a little bit more or even a shutout. But, Seth Hennigan, he was 27 of 36, 334 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did have those 2 interceptions, but 75% completion percentage. I think he'll take that all day long. And he's on track to break Brady White's all-time career passing yards mark. He only needed 317.5 yards per game average this year. So he obviously beat that. Passing grade for Hennigan, to me, I think he was solid. Just needs to there was just that one play where I think it was the first interception where he could have stepped up and then tried to deliver the pass, but he tried to throw straight through the defender and he got intercepted. But the Memphis running game, Sutton Smith, who I predicted would have 100 yards, he did. 18 carries for 115 yards, 2 touchdowns. Blake Watson started the game, 10 carries for 75 yards, 7.5 yards average. Sutton Smith, going back to him, he had almost 6.5 yards average. So the running back room, to me, I thought they did a fine job. Solid B score there. The Memphis receiving, Blake MC, 6 catches, 98 yards, and a touchdown. I thought he was fantastic. Rock Taylor, finally got to see Rock Taylor start a game and play some significant time. He also had 6 catches for 78 yards. Overall, offensively, I thought the Memphis offense did great. There were some times, I think the third quarter was their best quarter. Like the first series of the first quarter where they just marched down the field. I thought that was an actual. I thought that was a great drive by them. The second time they had possession, they went 10 plays, but only 23 yards, but they did get the field goal. Very next possession, they had that interception. going into the last possession of the first quarter, they had a touchdown, 9 plays, 70 yards. So I mean, to me, it was just, I'm sorry, that was the first possession of the second quarter. But they had 2 touchdowns and a field goal in the second quarter, but they also threw that interception, late in the second quarter. That third quarter, though, I mean, every possession was a touchdown. And I mean, it was fantastic to see. So, I mean, kudos to the Memphis offense. But to me, the story is the Memphis defense. They were just fantastic. You hold Bethune-Cookman under 100 yards for the entire game. Total yards, 91 yards. I think that was the first time since 2015 when they beat SMU 63-0. So, great by the Memphis defense. Coach Matt Barnes, has his guys running. It was definitely fantastic to see. Fox was all over the field, 5 tackles. He had 1 sack. It was nice to see. He called his name quite a few times during the broadcast. So, I mean, overall, I don't think you can say too much about this, or too much negatives. I mean, there was a couple of plays, a couple of mistakes that they need to, shore up going into Arkansas State. And it's going to be interesting to see this game because Arkansas State, they're not as bad as that 73-0 loss. So what type of Arkansas State are we going to see? Is it going to be, the 55-50 game that we saw a couple of years ago? Even last year it was 44-32. Usually these games are high scoring. Looking through, there's only been, the last time the winning team in this series didn't have 30 points was back in 2008 when Memphis won 29-17. But still a relatively high scoring game. As last time, neither team had 20 points. You have to go all the way back to 2000 at Arkansas State when Memphis won 19-17. So I think, just from this series, we can expect a high scoring game. Prediction time. I'd like to see Memphis, obviously clean up their act, with the turnovers. I want to see a little bit more, aggressive on defense, possibly get, a couple more sacks. I do think it's going to be a high scoring game. If you look at all the, matchup predictors and stuff like that, they all have, Memphis, 82% chance of winning this game or 70-something% chance of winning this game. But I still think it's going to be a high scoring game. I'm going to say that Memphis wins in the ballpark of 45-41. High scoring game. I think it's going to be a close game. And at Tiger Sports Report, we're going to have a watch party again. So if you're not going to Jonesboro to watch a game, feel free to go to tigersportsreport.com. We're going to have a link to where you can have a watch party with me. Larry Marley's going to jump on board, and we're going to just have a good time watching the game, chat up with some fans. So this is it for TSR tonight. Appreciate everybody listening and watching, and go Tigers go.